Tell me the city on your screen. I like to know how far a gavel can travel. My name is Marjorie Ellison. Marge to most folks. 66 years old, retired postal supervisor from the south side of Atlanta. I thought I'd already seen every kind of disappointment a smile could hide. I was wrong, because one afternoon while I was eating lunch, my house changed hands. On paper. No warning, no phone call. Just a letter stamped quitclaim deed, 2:41 p.m. And the name under new owner wasn't mine. They called it guardianship. They called it care. They called it safety. But I learned that silence has a signature, and sometimes it's pressed with a notary stamp. So I did what any mother who built a home with her own two hands would do. I found proof. I found a voice, and I brought a gavel that wasn't made of wood. It was made of truth. If you're watching this, stay till the end. Because what happened next in a Savannah jazz club called the Canary Room proved that justice can sound like music, if you know how to listen. Saturday started the way I like my days. Simple, even corners. I had the living room window open to catch the kind of breeze that makes lace curtains look proud of their work. Diana Ross was humble on the radio. A pot of green beans cooled on the stove, a pat of butter melting slow as a good apology. The porch fan hummed like it had a secret. I folded dish towels the way my mother taught me, crease to crease, edge to edge, and I thought about calling my daughter, Brianna, to see how her shift in the ER went. That was when the white cargo van rolled to a stop by my curb in College Park. The logo on the door was a cheerful sunrise with 4 little rays. The letters under it said, Sunrise Care Concierge. The man who stepped out wore a polo with the same sunrise threaded over his heart. He walked with his shoulders forward like he was pushing time itself. Mrs. Ellison, he asked, head tilted sideways like a curious bird. Quick home assessment, free. Helps seniors qualify for services. I didn't request anything, I said through the screen. He smiled like no was a cute word. No problem, ma'am. We're doing the whole block. Doorways, bathroom rails, kitchen reach. You'd be amazed how a grab bar can keep somebody out of the hospital. His eyes went past my shoulder into my house. They paused on the framed photo of Brianna in blue scrubs, the one where she's holding a stethoscope like a promise. He asked if I lived alone. He asked if I ever got dizzy standing up. He asked about falls. He asked with kindness that felt rehearsed. I told him I was fine. He told me it would only take 2 minutes. He held up his phone like a badge, thumb tapping the camera. Just want to make sure thresholds are standard. Sir, I said, letting the screen door speak for me, I'm keeping my thresholds to myself. He took 3 photos anyway, quick as steps. The front threshold, the bathroom doorway, the kitchen. His grin said we were partners. His retreat to the van said we were not. Paperwork comes by mail, Mrs. E, he called as he climbed in. You'll thank me. I locked the door. I turned off Motown. I stood where the hallway meets the living room and listened to my own breath until it slowed down and sounded like mine again. On Monday, the letter came from the county. The envelope had that official gray that bleeds the color out of your day. Inside, there was a notice with my parcel number, my street spelled exactly right, and the seal of Fulton County. It said, quitclaim deed recorded. It said, new owner of record, Mr. Trent D. Lawson. It had a recording time, 2:41 p.m., and a fine print line about consideration being $10 and other valuable consideration. $10. I tasted metal in my mouth. I called the number at the bottom because that's how I was raised, to walk right up to a thing and ask it its name. A woman with a voice like a row of file folders said that deeds are public, that recording does not verify authenticity, that I should speak with an attorney if I believed something improper had happened. She said it like she was tired of saying it. I hung up and called Brianna. Mom, hey, she said, a plastic rustle in the background, maybe a chart sliding into a sleeve. 1 second, okay, what's wrong? Baby, I said, my voice thinner than I intended. Somebody just moved my house on paper. There was a quiet space on the line, long enough for me to picture her face. That's not a thing, Mom. It is when the county sends you a letter. Okay, she said quickly, too quickly. Forward it to Trent. He's been helping families with this kind of stuff. He says the county makes mistakes all the time. Trent, I repeated, feeling the word in my mouth like a pebble. You're Trent. Yes, she said, brightening automatically the way you do when you love a person you're trying to persuade the world to love. He knows paperwork. He's got a company, Sunrise Care Concierge. They help elders navigate transitions. Transition, like a butterfly, or like a body leaving a room for the last time. The next words came out of me before I could fold them into something polite. Come by after your shift, I said. Bring him, bring your eyes. That evening, I drove to Brianna's place in Buckhead. Sidewalks shine there. Houses know when to pose. The lobby of her building smelled like money and little dogs. I held my letter the way you hold a child at the doctor. Steady hands, soft voice. Don't show the fear or it will multiply. I had a pie balanced on my other wrist because I was raised to bring sweetness when you carry a hard thing into a room. Trent opened the door in a white shirt that embarrassed the walls. He hugged the air between us like it was me. Mrs. E, he sang, you didn't have to drive up here. We could have... I wanted to look somebody in the face, I said, stepping past him, the pie safe on my palms. Brianna kissed my cheek and rubbed my arm. The same hands I rubbed cocoa butter into when she was 8 were now rubbing me back, as if I was the one who needed encouragement to be brave. We've got it handled, she said. Trent knows the flow. The county messes up so much. I put the letter on the counter. The county printed a new owner for my house. It says your name, Mr. Lawson. Trent's smile didn't move, but something about it turned into a performance of itself. Probably a preliminary assignment for a care plan, he said smoothly. When we petition for a temporary guardianship, the county sometimes does a placeholder. Guardianship of who? I said. He opened a folder with my name on it. I didn't like the sight of my life on his paper. Look, he said, as if we were making a pie crust together. Nobody is taking anything from you. We're protecting you. Have you heard of executive function decline? It comes on slowly. You misplace things. You forget to pay a bill. You leave the stove on. I turn it off, I said. I make lists. I'm old, not gone. Brianna bit her lip. Mom, you left the garden hose running for 3 hours last month. Remember the water bill? That was because the connector is stiff, I said. You push it too far. It spits water like a bad joke. I fixed it. Trent slid a form across the marble counter. Temporary guardianship petition. Just for finances. Just while we set up supports. With your consent, the judge will expedite and the deed... You filed before you asked, I answered. You smiled before you told the truth. His face did not change, but his shoulders sharpened. Mrs. Ellison, I need you to understand that families who wait get hurt. We're here to make sure nothing that you've built is lost. What would you call a deed disappearing? I asked. Paperwork noise, he said lightly. That will unwind itself. We'll put you in a nice place for a few weeks, just until the court... I held up my hand. My home is my place. Brianna and I looked at each other. And in that look, I saw my little girl holding my pinky to cross a street, and I saw a woman trying to make space for a man she loved in an apartment that had only 2 bedrooms and a small understanding of privacy. This is our sanctuary, she whispered, a word she had learned in a therapist's office. We work odd hours. We need boundaries. Boundaries are for fences, I said. Doors are for mothers. I asked to stay on her couch, just for a couple weeks. I told them I would be quiet as breath. I said I could fold laundry if she dropped it on my lap, that I could watch a pot and a baby monitor at the same time. Trent's hands made a temple while he pretended to pray. I'll help with a hotel, he said pleasantly. A few hundred to get you started. There are extended stay places by Lennox with kitchenettes. Independence is so important. Independence. I've never heard a kind word spoken with such intention to shove. I picked up the pie and set it down as a peace offering. I would not be staying to eat. I tucked the letter back into my purse the way you tuck a newborn into a blanket, knowing the world is colder than it should be. I kept my back straight to the elevator, and I practiced my face in the mirrored walls so I could keep it when I reached the lobby. I have always been the type who walks to the bus stop with her chin up, even after a rain. That night, I rode south on I-85 with the radio off, and every green exit sign looking like a question I did not know how to answer. The motel I picked had a number for a name and an office with a bell you press and press until someone appears with a look that says grace is expensive. The room key was heavy, like it had to show itself to believe it existed. The bathroom light buzzed, then dimmed, then buzzed again like a wasp got stuck inside the fixture. I put my purse under the pillow and my shoes under the bed and my hope in the drawer with the Gideon Bible, because that's where I have hidden it before. On the second night, a couple argued in the hallway in whispers that were louder than shouting. On the third night, I added up the numbers in my checkbook in pencil, then erased them because it made the balance look thicker for a second. On the fourth night, when the manager told me I had to check out by noon because there was a group booking coming, I emptied a secret pocket in my wallet that I had not emptied in 20 years. A card slid out. The edges were soft as cloth. The ink was the color of tea left on the counter too long. Lionel Brooks, it said in neat high school letters. Debate captain. Booker T. Washington High. At the bottom, he had written a slogan he liked to repeat when I was 17 and late. Speak justice. On the back, I had scribbled a phone number, then crossed it out and written a new one, then crossed it out and written a third one with a small question mark next to it. I had updated his number after my husband died, and I found the card in a drawer under rubber bands and old stamps. Then I had tucked it away again and told myself I was silly to keep such things. My hand shook when I dialed. The phone rang once. Brooks, he said, the voice older, deeper, but with the same cadence of a man who speaks with his whole feet on the ground. Lionel, I said, and my mouth found what it had been wanting to say since the elevator door closed on that white shirt. It's Marjorie. He didn't ask which Marjorie. He didn't ask how I got his number or how I'd been. He said, "Where are you?" And stay put, and I'm on my way. And then he was gone, in the way that means a man is already moving. A dust blue Buick pulled into the motel lot just before noon. He got out slow, like knees have their own calendar after 60. He wore a charcoal jacket that had stood in both weddings and funerals. The hair that had been ink black when he argued me into running for class treasurer now wore a neat frame of silver. The eyes were the same. They measured harm like a carpenter measures wood, and they cut it down with words that fit. He took in everything. The rust line on the ice machine, the look on the manager's face, the way I was standing like I'd forgotten how to take up space. He said 3 words that changed the color of the room even before we left it. "You're safe here." Then he looked at the motel and corrected himself. Soft. "You're safe with me." Savannah met us with a river that kept its own opinions and live oaks that wore Spanish moss like shawls. Lionel's Jazz Club was on a brick street that looked like it could tell stories all night if you tipped it well. The sign above the door had a small yellow bird painted with a confident beak. The letters said, "The Canary Room." "Back office," Lionel said, holding the door for me like it was a ceremony. "It smells like Old Horn and Hope. Best place on earth." The office had a couch the size of a generous decision. There were framed posters on the wall, Ella Fitzgerald in a dress that made you believe in silk, Nina Simone looking like she knew you by your true name, and a photo of Lionel in a public defender's suit decades ago, shaking hands with a client somewhere between despair and relief. A small refrigerator hummed beneath a counter with a hot plate and a coffee maker that looked like it knew its business. "The bathroom's through there," he said. "Fresh towels on the dryer. Take your time. I'll throw fish in a pan. We'll talk like people who want to know the ending of a story." I stood under a shower that told me water is still good. I watched my tears camouflaged by the stream and pretended I didn't notice what was mine and what was universal. I put on the softest t-shirt Lionel found in a back closet and smelled detergent instead of fear. When I came out, there was catfish and rice and a salad with tomatoes that looked like they belonged in a painting. He poured me lemonade. He waited. I told him everything. The man with the sunrise, the letter from the county, the gathering in Brianna's kitchen where the word sanctuary was used like a doorman, Trent's smile, the word guardianship spoken like a lullaby you sing when you want somebody to fall asleep and never wake up into their own agency again. I told him about the motel light, about counting dollars, about the feeling of having your name taken off your door and put on a lie. "Deed fraud," he said when I ran out of words. "Guardianship games. I saw it plenty when I practiced. It comes in waves. Anytime the water level falls in people's wallets, there's always a new company selling lifeboats that actually leak. He slid a yellow legal pad toward himself and wrote my name at the top like it was a case. Okay, Marge, we build a plan. We started with the county website because most thieves forget how bright a screen is. Lionel pulled up the property records on an old laptop that had a key missing in the bottom row. We typed my parcel number. The deed image loaded one gray stripe at a time, like an unpleasant memory slowly deciding to return. There was my name, Marjorie L. Ellison, on the old deed. And then, beneath it, a quitclaim deed to Trent D. Lawson. Consideration. $10 and other valuable consideration. A notary block with a seal that looked pressed too flat. A signature that looked like mine if you told my hand there was no time to be careful. The recording stamp said 2:41 p.m. The document was uploaded at 4:09 p.m. The notary's name, Eve S. Salgado. Commission number, 7,145 Fulton County. Lionel clicked the notary index and ran a search for Salgado Eve E.S. Her name sat beside a little cluster of deeds over the last month. The sellers were all elders. The price was always $10 and other valuable consideration. The buyers were mostly new LLCs with names that sounded like vitamins: Pearl Home Ventures, Bright Future Holdings, Maple Root REI. The same lawyer's name, Ray P. Judson, appeared in the return to address. They're doing both sides, Lionel said, tapping the screen with the end of a pen. Guardianship petition to freeze a life. Deed to move the asset. Flip to a holding company, then sell to a developer who asks no questions and sees only squares on a map. Fast and quiet. What do we do? I asked. Not a whisper, not a shout. He underlined the notary's name. We find Eve. We figure out if she saw any human being sign anything. We look at Sunrise's LLC filings, and we call a clerk I know at probate who hates when people use the word safety to steal. We found Eve working afternoons at a UPS store 2 streets in from the river. She was 40 or so, with hair pulled into a bun that promised it used to be softer until life asked it to be hard. Her shoulders had the forward slope of someone who has held too many secrets for other people with better shoes. When she saw my printout, she went still. I can't discuss clients, she said quickly. I'm not a client, I said, the edges of my voice rubbed down with calm on purpose. I'm the woman whose kitchen faces east, whose back porch has a squeak on the 3rd board, whose mother's quilt hangs over the chair where the sun catches the blues at 10 in the morning. She looked at the commission number printed under her name. She looked at Lionel's card. She looked at my hands. She exhaled into both of her own. They bring stacks, she said in a rush. They bring Mom Can't Travel. And she's confused, and we're behind schedule, and Eve be a doll and stamp the copy. We'll bring the original by this afternoon. They promise to come back. They never do. I keep a log. I told myself I was doing a kindness because they always say the word hospital. I told myself I was saving families time. You notarized a signature that wasn't made in front of you, Lionel said. Not gentle, not cruel, just true. They had IDs, she whispered, like a child who knows what truth costs. Photocopies. The signatures looked like practice. A nurse was with them. She was so calm. Brianna, I thought, my stomach icing. Then the next thought came, unwelcome and necessary, or a woman wearing her name. Can you say that under oath? Lionel asked. She flinched. I have rent. I have a little boy who needs asthma meds. They will bury me in paper until my lungs forget how to be lungs. You will bury yourself in silence, Lionel said. And then he softened the way a good man does when he remembers we are all in between 2 needs. We can protect you. It's uglier on the day they come for you because you protected them. She wrote a number on the back of a receipt and slid it across the counter. A prepaid phone. Text me when you have a date. If a judge looks at me, I'm going to tell the truth. But I need a road. The road started at the Georgia Corporation's Division website where Sunrise Care Concierge lived on a single screen. Organized 18 months ago, registered agent, Trent D. Lawson. Officers, Trent D. Lawson and Ray P. Judson, ESQ. Business address, a suite number that belonged to a mail center. Lionel was a former public defender. He smelled a racket like a musician hears a wrong chord. He clicked through petitions in the probate court's public portal. Guardianships everywhere, a small river of them, each with a doctor's note and a nurse's addendum about executive function diminished. The nurse's signature said B. Ellison, RN. Not Brianna, I said, loud enough to scare a gull outside. She would never. She knows charting like she knows breathing. Lionel slid me a highlighter. Look at the license number attached to that signature, he said. Then look up your daughter. The number in the petition didn't match the license on the state board's site. The B looked like a child's attempt at an adult's flourish. Somebody had used my daughter's name as a mask to steal my house and then expected us to bring a casserole. We need a piece of his voice, Lionel said. Paper and video, paper and audio. How? We invite him to do what he loves, Lionel said. We set a scene he thinks is yours. We let the tape ask him the kind of questions a good man would answer with care, and a thief answers with a pen. We recreated my living room in the club's back room. I didn't know you could rent a doorway. A set designer friend of Lionel's from the theater district brought 2 thresholds and a piece of trimmed carpet that looked like it had been walked on by a family. He built a slice of my house from the photos on my phone, the thrifted lamp, the little brass plate that says "Bless this mess," the spice rack by the stove with cumin missing because I needed to buy some. Lionel hid 3 recorders, a lamp base, a tissue box with neat little holes, and a tiny one under the chair. He set up a phone camera that looked like a thermostat. Eve accidentally scheduled a follow-up standards check in the Sunrise app. Mrs. Ellison needed a final capacity assessment to complete the guardianship plan. Trent texted back with a smile in the words. He liked appointments that look like consent. He arrived 10 minutes early, alone. His pity cologne applied, but not overpowering. He peeked down the faked hallway the way a wolf might assess a dollhouse it plans to claim. He measured doorways. He tested the pretend grab bar. He laid a packet on the coffee table. Capacity questionnaire. He spoke softly with the cadence of someone who knows that threats are better received when wrapped in a blanket. Every third sentence featured the word safe. What day is it? He asked. Wednesday, I said. Count backward from 100 by 7s. I smiled with a mouth that wouldn't break. 93, 86, 79, 72, 65, 58, 51, 44, 37, 30. He praised me the way you praise a dog that sits but isn't allowed on the couch. Remember these 3 words, he said. Apple, blue, train. He asked me again in 3 minutes. I remembered them. He made a dot next to impaired anyway, pen sliding like a small snake. How long does a temporary guardianship last? I asked. As long as you need care, he said. And the way he smiled made me picture a chessboard. He left with a wave and a promise to email next steps. Lionel exhaled the way people do when the plan worked, but the victory tastes like tin in your mouth. We went to the district attorney's office in Chatham County first because that's where we were standing when the recordings were in our hands. The assistant DA we saw was a woman with careful hair and a stack of files that looked like pancakes with nails in them. She listened to everything. She watched the video. She circled names. She made a small mark on a yellow pad every time Trent said safe. This is ugly, she said, and it's paper heavy. The cleanest way to convert ugly to criminal is if probate calls it fraud first. We can run parallel on the notary piece if we need to, but I like my cases to walk in on their own legs. Can you file in Fulton probate and bring this to the judge's eyes? We can, Lionel said. We can be in Atlanta by morning. She nodded. I'll prep an elder exploitation referral so when the judge raises her eyebrow, we're ready to move. No promises on speed, but I can promise a pair of eyes that hate this. That night, in the back of the club after closing, Lionel made soup like he was making a case. Salt like fact, heat like strategy, onions softened until they told you secrets. He put a bowl in front of me and turned down the lights in the room so the edges stopped shouting. He let John Coltrane ask questions and pretended not to hear me breathe like I believed in failure. What if we lose? I asked. He didn't say we wouldn't. He said, Then we appeal. Then we organize. Then we make so much honest noise someone with a robe remembers why they put it on. We drove to Atlanta in the morning in the dust blue Buick. The city met us with its new glass shining at the old bricks. I hadn't been in the Fulton County probate court since my husband died, and I had to collect signatures until my hands smelled like ink for a week. We filed a motion to void the quitclaim deed as fraudulent based on forged notarization, and we attached the recordings and the notary's expected testimony on a little affidavit Lionel drafted like he was still getting paid by the hour. The clerk stamped the packet with the satisfying thunk that government stamps have when they know that they are making a sound somebody needed to hear. We were told to sit in a row of chairs that looked like they came out of a church basement. At 9:17, they called In re Ellison. Judge Patrice Mallory was the kind of woman who could raise one eyebrow and send men into their own conscience. She looked at the petitioner's table where attorney Ray P. Judson sat in a navy suit that had opinions about pens. Trent was beside him doing his compassionate face. Brianna was 3 rows back with her hands squeezed together. I recognized the knuckles I used to kiss when she fell off her bike. "Counselors," the judge said, like she was opening a lesson. "Your Honor," Judson began, using the voice of a man who has memorized the acoustic sweet spots in a courtroom. "We petitioned for a temporary guardianship to safeguard Miss Ellison's assets and person. She is at risk. We have a physician's affidavit and supporting nursing notes. The deed transfer is part of a standard plan to centralize care decisions." The judge flipped to the signature on the nursing note, B. Ellison, RN. "Yes, Your Honor," Judson said smoothly. A small voice in the gallery said no, and then a larger one tried to put the small one back in a box. Brianna stood. "I'm Nurse B. Ellison," she said, her voice thin as a needle. "I did not write that note. That is not my license number." The room inhaled the way a room does when a mirror shows everyone what they look like. Judson adjusted his tie like it might save him. "We're prepared to stipulate there may have been a clerical error." Lionel, not a lawyer in that room, stood because a man like him believes posture is speech. "Your Honor, we have exhibits." "You don't have standing to speak," Judge Mallory said without looking at him, "but you may hand up the exhibits." He did. The court watched 20 seconds of Trent smiling as he put dots in columns that did not belong to him. They watched my mouth say apple, blue, train, and they heard my voice hold steady. They watched him mark impaired anyway. They heard him say, as long as you need care, you can listen to a person pretend they're protecting you and you can know the word predator without anyone teaching it to you. "Where's the notary?" the judge asked, eyes scanning like a lighthouse. Eve stepped forward from the back where she had been balancing on the edge of flight. "I am," she said, "and I have never loved 2 words more. They used me. I let them. I didn't witness signatures. I stamped copies. I thought I was doing something small and kind. I wasn't. I can tell the truth now. If someone will put it somewhere, the truth can live." Judson smiled the way a boy smiles when he tells his mother the vase fell by itself. "Your Honor, we object to—" "You don't object to a witness," Judge Mallory said, still calm. "You will have time to respond after you hear her." Eve told the truth. She told it with dates and invoice numbers and the way the front doorbells sound at the UPS store at 9 in the morning when a man walks in with a folder and a nurse who never meets your eyes. She told it with a hand that shook just enough to let you see she was a person and not a prop. When she finished, the judge leaned back like she needed a different angle to see the same set of facts. "Temporary guardianship petition is denied," she said. "Any transfer of real property predicated on this record is void ab initio. Clerk will place a stay on any further filings touching Miss Ellison's parcel. This matter is referred to the District Attorney's Elder Exploitation Unit. Mr. Judson, do not speak. You will need your words later in a room where other people wear badges." Brianna made a small sound, like a glass cracking but not breaking. Trent looked at me with the kind of face a man wears when he is imagining a different woman in my seat, one with a softer spine. I looked back the way my grandmother taught me to look at men who get their power from confusion. I looked like I knew the name of what I was watching. Outside, the sun hit the courthouse steps like a blessing somebody didn't ask for but took anyway. Brianna came down slowly, shoulders forward like she had been shielding her heart for months and forgot that it also needs air. "I didn't know," she said, and the words came out small. An apology formed before the mouth knew how to carry it. "He said everyone does paperwork like that. He said it made families safer. He told me I overreact to everything, that I don't trust enough, that my job makes me—" "I know what he said," I told her. "I heard him say it." She stared at her ring. It looked heavy in the bright day. "I forgot who you are," she whispered. "You make everything look easy, and I thought that meant you didn't need anyone." "I needed you," I said. "Not cruelty, not sugar, just a clean sentence handed over like fruit. I still do, but need and hospitality are not the same word." She nodded, a slow bow to understanding. "I'm going to the hospital," she said. "I'm telling the board my license number is attached to a note I didn't write. I'm returning the ring. I'm going to sit in my car and feel stupid for 20 minutes, and then I'm going to make a list, because lists are how you survive shame. Come by the club when you're ready to tell yourself the truth out loud," I said. "We keep lemonade cold and chairs honest." That afternoon, the DA called Lionel. The words investigation and pattern and search warrant sounded different when she said them now, like they had teeth. They asked for our recordings. We scanned the documents in his office on a machine that gave the pages a warm smell like toast. The detective who called after that had a voice that had seen too many cancels and wanted a win. They picked up Judson's files in a neat sweep you could set a watch by. Sunrise's mailbox suite held more than mail. The man with the Sunrise polo was photographed carrying a shredder out of a back door, his smile replaced by a jaw. I didn't watch the local news. I waited for phone calls from people who thought of me only when the story shifted, and then I let the calls go to voicemail because I did not need other people's speed inside my day. My house stood the way it had always stood. White paint that needed a new coat where the afternoon sun kissed it too hard, porch steps with that third squeak, the quilt by the chair catching the 10 o'clock light. The clerk at the deed office looked at me with a kind of softness I recognized from funerals. "We'll process the void," she said. "You'll get a confirmation letter next week. I'll call you too. I don't trust the mail for things like this. No offense." As a retired postal worker, I replied, "I take exactly 0 offense and full gratitude." The neighbors saw me on the porch and waved like they had been practicing. Mr. Carroll from 2 doors down brought over his dog because he knows petting something that loves you for free is better than 3 sermons. Mrs. Nguyen from the end of the block brought spring rolls wrapped like presents. People came with kindness that tasted like pepper and salt and thyme. Brianna arrived at dusk when the sky was a bruise that hurt less than it looked. She stood on the second step and didn't come up until I nodded. She had her ring in her hand. It looked like a small moon balancing between 2 fingers. "He said I betrayed him," she said, half a laugh, half a cough. "He said I chose you over our future, as if you and I were on different sides of the same city, as if choosing my mother is a war crime." "What did you say?" I asked. "I said I choose the person who raised me to be a nurse. I said a future built on forged notes is not a future. I said there will be a day in court and he should bring his appetite, because justice eats slow." I hugged her. She hugged me back for real. There is a difference between a casual family embrace and the kind you give when someone just took a bad idea off your finger. I felt her shoulders settle into a new alignment, the way a picture hangs straight on the nail after you jostle it back into integrity. In the days that followed, there were interviews and paperwork and the kind of waiting that makes the inside of your mouth taste like pencil shavings. Lionel returned to Savannah and called me every evening to make sure supper had a plan. I cooked for myself because food is a language I speak when I need to remember I live here. He told me about the club, about the trumpet player who could make the room hang on one note, the couple who danced like their knees still thought they were 20, the dishwasher who wrote poetry in a notebook balanced on the dryer. He also told me about a client from his public defender days, a quiet retired welder named Clarence, who lost his house to a guardianship trick that had a different logo but the same root. He died in a county room with a view of a dumpster, Lionel said, voice low. I swore if I ever got a chance to flip the table, I would. I started that club because I needed a place where honest sound could win for 2 hours every night. What's the canary for? I asked. In the mines, he said, they used to carry a canary in a cage. If the air went bad, the canary would pass out first, and the men would know to run. I named my place the Canary Room because I wanted it to be the kind of spot where people notice before the air goes wrong, where we hear the note change early enough to save someone. I thought about canaries and doorways and stamps. I thought about how many ways a life tells you its air is changing if you are quiet enough to listen. I thought about my grandmother who used to say, "There's always a woman with a key. It might be you." The district attorney's office moved slower than television, but faster than the justice I had seen when I worked 20 years ago to get a streetlight fixed. They indicted Trent and Judson on counts that sounded like they were designed to prevent people from learning Latin. The charges said exploitation and forgery and racketeering. The bond hearing was a small play in which the men who had once called themselves protectors of elders were reintroduced to the arithmetic of consequence. Eve came by my porch with her son one Saturday. He was 9 and clutching a book about planets. She looked like a person who has finally slept. We started over, she said. I got a job doing mobile notary the right way, with a company that puts the signer in front of me even if I have to drive to 3 addresses. I'm going to night classes for paralegal certification. It helps to learn the names of the traps so you can see them before you step. Come by tomorrow, I told her. We're doing something. What? You'll see, I said, and I lifted the lid off a pot to show her the gumbo base glowing low like an ember. Bring your appetite. The next afternoon, the Canary Room opened early. Lionel had sent a flyer to the churches and the community center and the barbershops and the hair salons. Bring your paper. Free help reading deeds, wills, power of attorney forms, medical directives, music after, food always. People came with folders and grocery bags and shoeboxes full of documents. Papers crackle differently when they have been under a bed for a decade. Lionel set out clipboards. Eve had a table with a little sign that said in neat letters, "Notary questions answered here." A retired title examiner named Francis had her reading glasses on a chain and a pencil sharpened like a spear. A young law student from Savannah State sat near the door with a laptop and a smile that said he wasn't bored for once. We read papers. We explained that a will and a deed are not the same thing. We told a man named Mr. Reeves that the predatory loan he signed had a balloon clause that would pop in 8 months and that there were people who could help him refinance before the explosion. We told a woman named Mrs. Hart that a nephew had put his own name on her checking account the week after her hip surgery and that she should go to the bank on Monday with a friend and a stern face. We told a deacon's wife from across town that the cousin who had been helping was also helping himself to her storage unit. We told 3 people about scams involving reverse mortgages that had feet like centipedes. We told a quiet man he didn't need to be ashamed that he didn't know the difference between a living will and a will until today. He cried anyway, but less than he did walking in. When the room emptied, we ate gumbo around the bar. Lionel had a bell at the register he used to call last round. He tapped it twice and handed it to me. "You call it," he said. "It's your court now." "Court?" I laughed. "Court is a room where truth is allowed to stand without being pushed over," he said. "You made one out of my club." I tapped the bell as if it were a gavel, small and bright. It made a sound that asked the room to pay attention but didn't frighten the air. As summer eased into an Atlanta autumn, Brianna changed her apartment. She took the photos where her face was pressed against somebody who didn't deserve it and put them in a box labeled Lessons. She came to the club most Sundays, at first to sit in the back and watch me laugh and write in a notebook like a kid, then to help people fill out healthcare proxies, then to bring 3 nurses she worked with who had grandmothers with questions and cousins with ideas for nonprofits. She started sleeping again. We learned to talk like adults who love each other, which is not the same as a mother correcting a child. We learned to say the sentence, "I was wrong," in ways that didn't lead us back to shame. One evening, a week before Thanksgiving, Lionel walked me down the river where the water carries the city's gossip and refuses to tell you where it learned it. He had a small wrapped box in his pocket. He handed it to me with a face that tried to be casual and failed because that's how faces are when they are honest. Inside was a gavel made of walnut, smooth as a promise. On the handle, he had had a nameplate fixed that said, Marjorie Marge Ellison, Mother with Jurisdiction. I ran my fingers over the letters. I'm not a judge, I said. You don't have to be to know when a thing is right, he replied. You're not out here sentencing people. You're opening rooms and saying, we will speak truth here and we will not be ashamed to know it. That deserves a tool. Is it corny that I love it? I asked. If it is, he said, then corn is nutritious. We stood by the water. Savannah hummed behind us. I thought of all the years between a high school debate podium and a club with a bird over the door. I thought of all the boxes I had carried into rooms and all the ones I had carried out. I thought of my husband, Robert, and the way routine with him was a kind of love, and I thought of the way a new chapter feels like a good porch, solid, inviting, waiting for you to bring whatever it is that makes you you. The DA in Atlanta called at the start of winter. The case had moved along the arc the justice uses when it is tired but stubborn. Trent took a plea to a set of charges that included words like fraud and exploitation, and a number that meant he would think about his choices in a small room for long enough to grow a different kind of smile. Judson was going to trial next. Eve testified with a voice that did not shake anymore. The court ordered restitution funds to start a small clinic for deed education at community centers with an address that isn't fancy. I attended one hearing. I sat in the back so nobody would feel compelled to watch me watching him. When the judge spoke the sentence, I did not feel joy. I felt air. I felt the return of something that had been standing outside my house waiting for its name. That Christmas, Brianna and I cooked together in my kitchen. We made mac and cheese the way you should, with a roux that understands flour is not supposed to taste like school paste, with a cheese that can see its reflection and still melt, with a bake that allows the top to become a promise. We called it a holiday because that is what you do when you survive a thing, and you want to name the day without scaring it. In January, the Canary Room hosted a fundraiser for a nonprofit that pays filing fees for seniors who need to record life documents, but have to choose between that and their prescriptions. Eve's son read a poem he wrote about Jupiter and said, "My mom tells the truth." The room clapped hard. Lionel's band played a slow version of Ain't No Sunshine, and then they played something original that felt like a room turning its face to the light. I rang the little bell twice, and the room grew quiet the way a good room does. For love. For grief. For a lesson. "Bring your paper," I said into the quiet, my voice steady in a way I wish it had been at every hard moment of my life. "Ask somebody to read it with you. If a thing looks too clean, it probably covers a mess. If somebody says you need to hurry with a signature, you tell them the only thing that required that much hurry was the birth of a child. The rest of us can take a breath." People laughed. Some cried. One woman said later that she had never enjoyed being told practical instructions so much. It felt like church without the part where you have to remember all the words to a hymn. Spring put azaleas on my porch in colors you have to see to believe. The city sent me a letter about a tree near the sidewalk that was city property and needed a trim. I called, and the man who came had a pencil behind his ear and told me his grandmother kept her deed in a cookie tin. "I told her to put it somewhere else," he said. "She told me the tin didn't do anything wrong." We laughed, like people who know tins have dignity too. One Sunday, a woman named Miss Dot came to the clinic with a grocery bag of papers that smelled faintly of mothballs and curry. She poured them onto the table like she was emptying years. Eve and I sorted them into piles. A man named Terrence, who comes every month because he likes to be around paper, helped us make sense of the timeline. In the bottom of the bag, under a stack of tax bills, we found a warranty deed from 1994 that gave Miss Dot a sliver of land next to her house that nobody else remembered existed. That sliver would stop a developer from claiming a strip of her yard. Miss Dot wept like the body knows when a border is defended. "Who gets the credit?" she asked, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "You," I said. "You kept your papers. You brought them. You trusted a room full of strangers to be better than polite." In late summer, Lionel and I drove to a coastal spot where the shrimp taste like they were just told a joke. He holds my hand when we cross streets, even though we are both quite capable. He calls it an old habit. I call it acceptable. He does not ask me to be smaller. He does not ask me to share less. He does not position himself between me and the world unless a car is reversing badly. The way he looks at me when I read the mail at the kitchen table is a kind of jazz I didn't know I had the appetite for at this age. People ask sometimes how to make amends with a child when the world has taught the child that boundaries are only used to keep elders out. Here is what I say on Sundays. A boundary is a fence you can see through. A wall is what people build when they are not brave enough to have a fence. Brianna and I learned fences. We learned that privacy does not mean isolation. We learned that independence is a thing you carry and a thing you share. We learned to call each other when we were tempted to keep something important from the person who would be kind about it. On the anniversary of the day my deed spent 2 weeks with a wrong name, I swept my porch with the broom I've had for years. I read a letter from the county that confirmed the quiet title action had been finalized in my favor. I wrapped the gavel Lionel gave me lightly on the arm of my chair, just once, because some occasions deserve a sound. It wasn't about punishing anyone. It was about marking the space between a lie and a life. If this story found you, tell me your city in the comments. Put your paper in a folder with your name on it. If you have an elder, say their name out loud today, and then ask if you can bring lemonade and a pencil and read something together. Subscribe if you haven't. Justice is slow, but community is quicker, and I intend to keep a chair at the table for you. A few weeks after that, a young man knocked on my door. He wore a suit that didn't fit him yet, and a tie that thought it was at a better party. He held a manila envelope carefully, like it had a temperature. "Miss Ellison?" he asked. "Detective Calhoun asked me to bring this." Inside was a copy of the restitution order and a handwritten note. "Thank you for the tape. Our office likes a story that ends with papers put back where they belong." I put the order in my folder labeled House. I put the note on the refrigerator because it made me feel like a citizen. I called Lionel and read it to him, pacing by the window while the late afternoon sun shaped little squares on the floor through the blinds. We didn't celebrate. We did the quieter thing. We put on a pot of rice. We opened the porch door. We let the air in. Later that night, in the canary room, I told the band to play something that sounds like a stamp undoes itself. They did. That's the thing about a good band. You can say a sentence that makes no sense, and they will make it into music. People in the room looked at each other like a secret made of light had just crossed the floor. I rang the bell twice and raised the little gavel once, and in that moment I knew something I want you to know too. Sometimes the gavel is not wood. Sometimes it is a voice memo. Sometimes it is a woman who says no at her own door. Sometimes it is a girl who takes a ring off her finger before the metal thinks it owns the skin. Sometimes it is a room full of strangers with clipboards and pens and soup who decide to learn the difference between a deed and a story. That sound you hear right now, the one you thought was only in courtrooms, is the sound a life makes when it remembers its own name. Tell me where you're listening from. Tell me the name of the street you love. Tell me what you keep in your folder. And if you ever need a table, a pencil, and a pot of gumbo, you know where to find us. The Canary Room opens on Sundays at noon for people who fought a thing. Bring your paper. Bring your patience. Bring your whole self. We will make room. I am Marjorie Ellison. I lost a deed at noon. My daughter's fiancé smiled. I brought a gavel. And I learned, finally and for good, that safety is not a service someone sells you. It is a circle you draw with the people who have earned a seat.